Hey guys, welcome back to the Pregnant Christian Environmentalist podcast. I am really excited for today's episode. Another deep, nitty-gritty one that so many people are not informed about by doctors, by parents, by school, and that we should know about. And even if another one that's not just relevant for pregnancy. So, yes, I'm pregnant. You can assume from the title if you have not been following along. And we're going to be talking about fertility, which is also, you'll find out later, I'm finding very, very relevant to pregnancy as well, because we're going to be talking about hormones. And I keep learning about the hormones in my body that are being spiked right now and doing really cool, magical, important things for this baby to grow, develop, and just thrive. So I normally do just an intro by myself, but I thought we'd just get right into it. On the call right now, I have a hormone specialist. So cool. Her name is Anne McLeary. Anne, hello. You can say hi. Anne, will you please introduce yourself? Take your time because I want to know what got you into this field, why you wanted to become a hormone specialist, and I'll have a bunch of questions for you later, but just a big introduction of yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I cannot wait to dive into this, and I love talking about hormones, so this is so much fun. But my name is Anne McLeary. I am a certified functional hormone specialist. So I help women basically naturally balance their hormones and relieve symptoms of PMS, cramps, PCOS, infertility. If you are really anxious, if you wake up feeling fatigued, if you have that afternoon crash, all these things are very closely linked to hormones. So all of these things are very common, but they're not normal. It has been normalized in society, saying like, oh, once you're, when you learn about hormones when you're 10 years old, and you hear about getting your period, you just think that, oh, well, my mom had cramps, so I'm going to have cramps. You just think that you're bound to get something. Or, Susie down the street always throws up because she has horrible cramps. Or, she doesn't even have a period. We just think that you're bound to have some sort of hormonal imbalance. And it's my goal to change that narrative because although these things are common, they should not be normalized. I used to experience really painful periods myself. I had a really heavy flow, and like I said, I thought that was just how women are. Just stuck with it. So I did the thing that everyone, well, most Americans do, is go on birth control. My doctor said, here you go, gave absolutely no information. I had two different kinds. I had like the arm one and the IUD. Both times, doctors said nothing about birth control other than this will help you with your symptoms and you're not going to get pregnant. And I even asked, I was like, hey, what about the copper IUD? And they were like, oh no, that'll just make your symptoms worse. That's all they said. And I just felt so blindsided and frustrated. But I went on birth control because I didn't know any better. And after a few years, I had a few conversations with friends, and they're like, why are you on birth control? And I was like, well, that's just what my doctor said. I didn't think twice about it. And I just started to feel really disconnected from my body. I was bleeding for about 6 weeks at a time. I did not know why. I didn't know what was going on. I knew nothing about my cycle or even if I was having one. And so I just decided, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go off of birth control because this does not feel right to me. And something deep down is telling me that I'm really missing out on something and I'm not experiencing being a woman. So I decided to take the leap of faith. And when I went to the doctor's appointment to get it removed, they basically they didn't actually say this, but they made me feel like an idiot. They're like, you're like, good luck out there, basically. And I was like, all right, I got this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to prove you wrong. And so I got a book called In the Flow. I think it's called that, by Alyssa Vitti. And it taught everything about cycle syncing. And this was my first introduction to learning about women's hormones. And I felt so blindsided by everything that I did not know. So in this book, they talked about basically the biggest takeaway was that men's hormones reset every 24 hours and women's hormones reset every 28 days. And I did not know that. And I was shocked. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And so I actually was originally a civil engineer, so very different. Um, but I was living in a man's world, living my life like a man. And there's nothing wrong with women being in STEM, whatnot. But I was waking up and living on a 24-hour schedule and doing the same thing every single day. Same food, same workout, same schedule, the 9 to 5 grind. And I just realized how that was just not conducive at all to women's hormones. And I just realized that it was my calling to become a certified functional hormone specialist. And I know that sounds like a very complicated title, but I just help women naturally balance their hormones. And I just knew that I had a greater purpose in helping women get the care that they deserved. Because, like I said, I was very blindsided by doctors. And so I knew that there was a need for this and a need to help women in this space. So I created my program. It's called Intuitive Hormone Harmony. And the reason for that name is that I just believe as a society we have lost connection with our intuition. It's very easy to get lost in what our body is communicating with us. And I believe that in order to be intuitive in the world, we need to be intuitive with ourselves first and start listening to our body. So although I'm helping, women relieve symptoms of PMS, cramps, PCOS, all these hormonal imbalances, um, at the end of the program, it's my goal to have you feel so connected to your body and just know how to trust your intuition.
That's amazing. I can't wait to learn myself right now because I actually know nothing about cycle syncing. And I mean, okay, the random cute posts I've seen on Instagram, the like one coworker I've had that's super into it, but I never really asked much because I didn't want to get overwhelmed. And I think a lot of women would relate with me. Actually, I know that because I have talked about it with friends and we're like, oh, we'll get to that eventually. But just in general, with women's health, with fertility, I mean, cramps, everything. The more I'm researching, especially because I'm pregnant, learning about hormones, the more I'm thinking this is not coincidence. These are symptoms our body is using to tell us that something could be better, something is interrupting a regular flow. And as I'm learning more about, toxins, plastics, all the hormone disruptors we hear left and right, and then watching just my own community of women have worse cramps. And I mean, I wrote a list like, let's talk about endometriosis, PCOS, early menopause, painful periods, acne, bloating. Like, it really looks like it's on the rise. And it, it's just not a coincidence. And we're told that it's genetic or it just is what it is. Like you said, just go on birth control and deal with it. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this, and I definitely think it's very relevant for if you're not trying to get pregnant, if you are trying to get pregnant, and if you are pregnant, and even as an older woman that if you're not on top of things, might experience early menopause or other symptoms that you don't want to experience. So, another thing I've been thinking about lately through some conversations is, man, I have like in my close circle of girls, 4 close friends that are struggling with infertility. I don't have that many friends. Like that's a lot of friends to be struggling with that in this season. And then of course, outside of that circle, lots of people, right? That I hear of. So that's just my personal life, but we can look at stats like infertility is on the rise. And something that I was told recently that just kind of blew my mind is maybe that is our body telling us this is not the correct environment yet to create a child in and to grow a child in. Like you have some things to fix. We have some toxins to be avoiding and cycle syncing to do maybe, like it could be other reasons. It could be maybe your partner something's up with that, but it could be your body saying, not yet. This is not the correct environment to grow a baby in. And that just struck a chord with me because no doctor is going to tell you that, right? They're just going to give you a medicine or whatever. Of course, there are specialists like you, Anne, that will give you hormones or like give you natural medicines that can quicken the process of making your body a good environment to grow a child in. And that's awesome. That's great. But I do also think we should be trying to heal the root of the problem, right? Instead of just taking the hormones or taking the what you can take, let's also try to find the root of the problem. Also, I'm just wanting to learn more and more about this because I am learning about relaxin and prostaglandin and all these hormones that play a really vital role in pregnancy. And so, okay, maybe my body was the correct environment. I got pregnant, but like I need to maintain that because these do really special roles throughout the pregnancy. And so that just extra motivates me to keep on top of things, keep on top of my health and listening to my body. And so I definitely, well, I have a million questions for Anne, duh, but I tried to just limit it to like, I think I have 4 or 5. But before we get into that, I thought it would be really cool to just share both of our knowledge on what we have learned about maybe some ABCs of working on women's health, fertility. Most women in my life don't know just what hormone disruptors are. Yes, even though it sounds overwhelming, there's a lot of hormone disruptors these days in our day-to-day life, but why it is worth it to try and like the more you can avoid them the better. It's not just all or nothing. It makes sense. Like the more you can take toxins out of your life. I mean, I'm thinking toxins because that's more my realm, plastics and all that. But yeah, the better results I think you'll see. So I'll just go through my knowledge first and what I've learned through experts, through like life experience, and then you could give your fertility ABCs tips as well. So, my first tips would be one, pretty easy. You can guess I'm going to say nutrition and just research it. Just research what are top hormone disruptors in foods. The one I learned actually in high school, I don't know how. It's not like I was taught this in school, but it was just an article came out, I don't know, but soy. Soy is just kind of known to, I don't know, I always heard the joke like, oh, men that eat too much soy will grow boobs. It boosts your estrogen and that is affecting women as well. The more estrogen we have. Actually, pause. And I have always told people, am I wrong? The more estrogen we have, the more these symptoms are going to come up. Like, no wonder there's more cysts, right? And the more symptoms we're having. Is that a right way of looking at it? That, like, it's because of our estrogen being boosted?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many different things, but estrogen is a huge one.
Okay.
So there's estrogen excess and estrogen dominance. Estrogen excess is caused by all of these toxins. So these hormone disrupting chemicals from things like soy, plastics, perfumes, artificial fragrance. Um, all of these things cause estrogen excess. And we're talking about that in relation to progesterone, and that creates a lot of hormonal imbalances. Estrogen is a very proliferative hormone. So when you have a lot of estrogen, that can thicken up the uterine lining, and that is what causes really, really heavy flow and really painful periods. And when you have like a really poor ratio of progesterone to estrogen, that's what actually causes PMS symptoms. So when you feel really, really cranky before your period, that's a sign that you have too much estrogen.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. I'm not even kidding. I've never read that. I've never been told that. It just kind of clicked in my head once, and I started telling my friends this. I was like, guys, no wonder we're having heavy periods and crazy cramps and cysts, like the cell overgrowth. It's it's the woman hormone. It's estrogen that's being boosted. Like everything is in hyperspeed down there. Yeah, that it just made sense in my mind. So I'm glad there's science to back that up because I would like go and tell all my friends to not eat so much soy, which is hard in Hawaii. We have a lot of soy here. That also you see animal products that have been boosted with hormones, just so that they grow faster, so that they get more yield and profit, right? So it's, it's pretty well known now. So you'll see labels that say hormone-free chicken, hormone-free milk, things like that. So try to buy those instead. Seed oils, yeah, just look into nutrition in general. And my next one would be decreasing exposure to plastic. And this is what I have been talking about so much. I just hate plastic because of the environment and how polluting it is, but more and more studies are coming out how it's affecting fertility. And it's interesting to me that most of those studies are on men, but I
Mm.
think those make it to the news more because it's actually shocking, like how much sperm count decreases when men are exposed to certain things like polyester. But there's a lot of studies done on women as well. And my top things, I actually did an episode on plastics and microplastics. So go to that one to see like all the ways you could, not all, but a lot of practical ways you can decrease your exposure to microplastics. But my top ones are try to not wear polyester underwear, try not to work out in polyester. Receipts are like, it's crazy how much BPA are on them, and it goes into your skin. That's been tested when you rub a receipt, which is crazy, but it's like straight BPA. Seems minor, but it's wild. Cooking utensils that are made with plastic. So heat on plastic is never a good combo. It'll melt into your food. I just have this plastic lens these days, and I'm like, oh, heat, plastic, food, or rubbing on my skin, not a good combination. Red flag, the more you avoid it, the more it'll just kind of pop out to you. And again, the more you avoid it, the better, just don't overwhelm yourself, but you can just start. My next one is decreased exposure to EMFs. So that's what's wild is if you look up like why avoid EMFs so much, it talks about fertility. Like that's just the biggest concern. That's what's being studied. And this isn't super hippie stuff. Like you can look up really highly reputable studied resources. That's what they're saying is, oh no, this is clearly showing a decrease in sperm count and affecting women's health. So try not to have cell phones in your pocket and try not to work with your laptop on your lap, which I lived that dorm life. I lived at with roommates where your little home is actually your room. You don't just put your laptop on the table and work away in the main living space, I had my laptop on my lap for years and just put a pillow between it at least, but just try to avoid that because this is being studied and it is actually wild. And the whole like cell phone in your pocket thing, I did also learn about 10 plus years ago. So this is not new news. And it's definitely, if you're experiencing unwanted symptoms, I think it's definitely something to really pay attention to. Next, this is a one talked about a lot, but fragrances, parabens. So your skincare, your cleaners in your house, are you buying from natural brands? So try to look for paraben free, which is now pretty common. So the more we see paraben free on labels, the more it's being studied, and we've seen like, oh gosh, this actually affects our health. These are actual hormone disruptors. One that I think we hear about a lot, but we never flip the bottle and check the ingredients for is fragrance, because I will walk into Whole Foods and go in their cleaner aisle or their skincare aisle, flip those bottles. They have big old green leaf on them. They're saying we're all natural, the most aesthetic packaging. It looks like this is the best purchase, right? And you flip the bottle and it says fragrance in the ingredients. And if they're saying fragrance, then they're not saying what is actually the fragrance. They're hiding something. It's something that they're not proud of. And so If it says perfume, natural fragrance, or fragrance, it's probably a hormone disruptor. It's hard to prove for some reason in the US. We don't have to disclose what the fragrance is. I see so many people use this one natural brand of laundry detergent and it has fragrance in it. I'm like, that's not very natural. So check for that. Drinking water. A lot of our drinking water, tap water, has percolate and lead. Even if it's a small amount, you're drinking that all day, every day. So those are known hormone disruptors as well. Cookware, forever chemicals, your pans, are they Teflon? Switch to cast iron, stainless steel. That's like my ABCs. What I've poked my friends about, my girlfriends that are struggling with cramps and things like that, and kind of the list I go through. But Anne, why don't you take it away on your kind of ABCs of fertility?
Yeah, so you really nailed it for a lot of like the big things, but I'll talk a little bit more on like why you want to do that. But before I actually wanted to read this little quote from actually my certification that I thought you would find really interesting because we were talking a lot about soy before,
Mm-hmm.
and that is actually a phytoestrogen. So I'm just going to read this to you. So some research shows that a vegan slash vegetarian lifestyle, which is very heavy in soy, may increase serum phytoestrogens levels higher than 35 nanogram per kilograms per day, which is higher than the damaging levels of BPA exposure, which is crazy. So I know you've talked a little bit about how you used to be, was it vegan or vegetarian?
I was vegan for a pretty short time. I felt horrible. So, but I was vegetarian for longer, maybe like a year. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, being like vegan or vegetarian, I know is like definitely a fad thing, but it is very damaging to our health. We need fats, we need animal protein, and
Mm-hmm.
on that, cholesterol is the building block to hormones. Cholesterol is only found in animal products. So we literally need to be eating animal products for our hormones. I mean, if you're really diligent and figure out like the perfect balance lifestyle with being vegan and vegetarian, maybe it'll work, but there's I don't know. Anyways, eat your eat your meats and veggies and fats.
Yeah, I've had a few vegan friends, their wake up call was the fact that they needed supplements. It's like
Yeah.
to get their vitamin B and certain, you're saying cholesterol, certain nutrients. It's like, no, you have to take this pill to
Mm.
survive or like to thrive, but I think even to just feel like well functioning. And that's when they realized, oh, this isn't how we're designed. We are carnivore species. And so yeah, that's a really good point. Also, a lot of people think I'm vegetarian. If you've listened to recent episodes, you'll know that I'm not. But yeah, thanks for touching on that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's something where, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about this, but how a lot of people get confused between like diets versus nutrition, and we think that we have to do a really extreme diet to be healthy, and that's just not the case. Food can be really simple, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I like in regards to fertility. Fertility is an interesting thing because when we think about fertility, we think getting pregnant and preparing our body for pregnancy. But fertility is quite literally the fifth vital sign, and getting your period is crucial to health. And with that, fertility means ovulating. And so we'll talk about cycle syncing in a bit, but you have four phases. You have your follicular phase, your ovulatory, your luteal, and your menstrual. Your menstrual phase is when you're bleeding. After that, you go into your follicular, then your ovulatory, which is when you're ovulating, and then your luteal, which is between ovulation and your period. And your luteal phase can get a lot of bad rap because that's when you're experiencing your ups and downs in your hormones and you feel crazy and you have cravings and whatnot. But the thing that's really important with all of this is prioritizing ovulation. Ovulation is the main event in your whole cycle. So a lot of people think that your period is, but your period is actually just a report card of how the last month went. And so we want to be prioritizing ovulation, because if we are not ovulating, we do not experience the second half of our cycle, which is our luteal phase. So we literally will not go into that phase if we are not ovulating. So when I talk about fertility, I'm basically talking about prioritizing ovulation. And this is something that we should be prioritizing whether or not we want to get pregnant or whether or not we want to be conceiving. And that is something that a lot of people look past, because, you know, it's interesting when I talk to people, they're like, oh, well, I'm not interested in like balancing my hormones because I don't want to get pregnant. And it's like, whoa, why are we only associating that with getting pregnant? Like, that is a sign of health. Like, don't you want to feel good every single day? Like, I feel like that should be a goal for all women. So implement these tips that I'll be talking about, whether or not you want to conceive, because fertility, like I said, is literally a fifth vital sign. So when we talk about ovulation, a main reason why we're not ovulating is because of stress. I mean, that is like the biggest thing, is stress. And the reason being is that our body thinks that either we're in a famine or a bear is attacking us or we're in severe danger, but it doesn't understand that we're probably just like stressed at home or with work or with whatever it is. But with that, stress isn't just, oh my God, I have, a big test or a big presentation, or maybe my marriage isn't going well, whatever it is. Stress isn't just those factors. Stress is also what you put in your body. So what you eat, the things you put on your body. So your products, like you've talked a lot about plastics, that is adding stress to your body. Another big thing is physical stress. So over exercise. This is also something that's not being talked about. And, for all those, one of my biggest pet peeves is all those like big influencer women out there that are like, just grind, just keep on working out, you're not doing it hard enough. It's like, no, that is adding so much stress to your body. And we can talk about like workouts and cycle syncing here in a minute, but all of these things are contributing to your stress bucket. And, also EMFs, like you talked about. So although if you just cut out, let's talk about EMFs, like if we just cut out Bluetooth and everything else stays the same, that's probably not going to make a difference. But if we do a little bit of everything or really start changing our life around, then that's going to make a difference in our stress bucket. So starting with food, this is the most important thing. And the way I like to explain like what to eat is, well, I guess with nutrition is it's important to eat the proper foods and eat in the proper way. So it's not just about how or what you eat, it's about how you eat. And that is something that's not being talked about. And what I mean by that is balancing your blood sugar. So it's really important to have proper nutrition. So the way I like to describe what you should eat is eat like your great grandmother did. Make it really simple. It doesn't have to be this complicated, like counting calories, counting micro and macro nutrients. Just eat like your great grandmother did. Is it a real ingredient? Is there red 40 in it? Is there riboflavin and all these things? Like, I bet you your great grandmother didn't eat any of those things because they didn't exist 100 years ago. So when you're trying to figure out what to eat, just literally think about, was this ingredient around 100 years ago? Simple as that. It doesn't have to be complicated. And then how to eat. This is huge. So this is balancing your blood sugar. And I could go, this could be like an hour-long thing with just balancing your blood sugar. But the biggest thing with this that I would say is make sure you're getting 30 grams of protein with each meal. When your blood sugar is not balanced, it spikes your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. That is adding stress to your body, and your body doesn't know if it's safe or not to ovulate, because your body will always be prioritizing survival over conceiving and creating life. So starting with eating really simple, clean ingredients and balancing your blood sugar, which with that, I would just start with eating enough protein. Do not skip meals. This sends your blood sugar just crazy. It creates a lot of peaks and valleys, and then that's when you're going to feel really anxious, irritable. That's when your hormones go out of whack. When your blood sugar isn't balanced, your hormones aren't balanced. So this is like my number one biggest thing. And then after that, physical stress. So we can talk about cycle syncing in a minute, but working out to your cycle, I think, is really, really important. So you reset every 28 days, which means you don't feel the same every day. So throughout this, you experience 4 different phases, and you should not be working out every single day. And for those who are like love working out, I know that might be really hard to hear, but it's adding a lot of stress to your body. The third thing is endocrine disruptors, and I think you touched really, really greatly on those points with decreasing plastics. So plastic, artificial fragrance, thing like BPAs, things in cookware, these are all xenoestrogens, and what they do is they mimic estrogen, and they go into the estrogen receptors and basically plug up your estrogen receptors and tell your body, oh, we don't need to be producing anymore because we already have so much in us. And so it creates this estrogen dominant state because we have all of these artificial estrogens in us, and that is what causes these hormonal fluctuations to go crazy and things that we don't want. So that's what causes cramps, really heavy periods, like I said, PMS, this irritability. And the last thing that I would say, and this is something that I do in my program, is testing your hormones.
Mm.
It is so important to understand what exactly is going on. Even if you feel good, test your hormones. So with this, I do a Dutch test, which is an at-home hormone test, and it gives a very, very comprehensive look into your hormones. And then from there, you can adjust your lifestyle and you can see, like, do you even have enough hormones? Are you eating enough cholesterol? You can see that. And then you can get specific supplements. Because I know a big one is people always want to know, like, what supplement should I take? And the answer to that is the ones for you. There's not a one size fits all supplement. And a lot of people want a cure-all solution, but there's just not one. So I would start with those basic. I know that's a lot, but first things first is dial in the foods you're eating. And then from there, you can build on it.
Wow, that was so good. I'm seriously just learning so much. I never thought about how stress is, yeah, the things we mentioned is adding stress to our body. And then, of course, stress just mentally in general is going to be affecting our ovulation. And yeah, I've seen people get injured from stress. It's very, very real. So thank you for that reminder because I definitely don't think about that enough. Um, yeah, and then would you agree too? Something I really try with each meal is to have fat with it. So you said protein, but I feel like most protein has fat in it. So maybe that's kind of the same concept, but I just have always learned like fat from butter or, not just scraping all the fat off the meat you're eating, olive oil, granola, whatever, like adding that to your fruit or produce that you're eating is going to help digestion. So is that kind of the same concept?
Yeah, so you want to be, so when I talk about balancing blood sugar and I say protein, with that, you should be pairing your protein with fats and fiber. And if you want to get a little bit more of the nitty gritty, you should be eating them in a specific order as well. So start with your start with your fiber because that basically coats your gut, and then eat your fats and protein together. And then that basically helps slow the release of the sugar into your bloodstream. And then end with carbohydrates because your blood sugar has already kind of been primed, and it's not just going to shoot up your blood sugar and then go into that crash, into that roller coaster. So fats are really important, not only for balancing blood sugar, but also fats are crucial because they are cholesterol, which are the building blocks to hormones. So we need to be eating fat, which is another thing why, with fad diets, they're like, oh, cut out fat, start counting calories, all these things. And they can be detrimental to your health and hormones. We need fat, we need cholesterol. Like I said, it's literally the building blocks to our hormones.
Yes, no more empty calories, no more fat-free meals. Yeah, I've personally experienced the wildest difference since I changed that mindset. So, but also need to work on my order of eating. I have not dove into that too much. So, thanks for that reminder. And yes, I'm always excited to hear something new to improve because I don't always feel perfect after every meal. I wish I did. I wish I ate perfectly, but I bet you that will help me a lot too. So, that's exciting. All right, so we definitely talked about how balancing hormones affects fertility. Fertility isn't just about getting pregnant. I'm just curious with your own work, have you been seeing a lot of improvements? You've seen it in your body, I've seen it in mine, but have you had clients with amazing testimonies that you'd kind of want to touch on?
Yes, definitely. So a few come to mind, but one that is like my absolute favorite story is a client came to me. She has been experiencing PCOS. Um, and the biggest thing is she wanted to get pregnant. So she tried to conceive for 2.5 years. She did all of the blood work, all of the procedures, all the medications you can think of, besides IVF. But the doctor said, you're just infertile. Good luck. All of the tests said everything's normal. Your hormones are fine. We don't know what's going on. Sorry, too bad. Good luck, kind of thing. And it really broke my heart. And she came to me. She was like, hey, can you help me? I was like, yes, like I would love to work with you. But the biggest thing is, no promises and any results. I am giving you the tools to feel your life and live a healthy lifestyle, but it's your responsibility to implement everything. So my program is 4 months long, and the first 2 months are actually lesson based. So in this, we learn mindset, how to eat, how to balance your blood sugar, how to cycle sync, what foods to eat in each cycle, how to track your ovulation, because that's really important in knowing where you're at in each phase, and just how to manage your stress, endocrine disruptors, all these things, all the tools you need to balance your hormones and really just live like your best life and feel good every day. And then at the halfway point, we do a Dutch test, which is testing your hormones, like I talked about. And from there, she was able to get specific supplement and lifestyle protocols. And then the last 2 months are just doing weekly checkups and making sure that, hey, we're following through with things and keeping you on track. So by the end of it, by month 4, she got pregnant. And
What?
yeah, she was trying for 2.5 years. Didn't even see a positive pregnancy test until month 4 working together. So it was really, really special and just so amazing. And goes to show that if you just start implementing these basic things, how much it can change your life. And, with that, like I said, she had PCOS. So one of the biggest things that we worked on was balancing blood sugar. That is huge with PCOS. PCOS, there's a few different types of it, but the main one is insulin resistant PCOS, which basically means that you're on the verge of being pre-diabetic or you are pre-diabetic. So balancing blood sugar is what you need to be focusing on, and that is something that doctors do not talk about. And it is incredibly frustrating, but I'm just really happy that I was able to work with her. And another client came to me. She had extreme fatigue. She was working out really hard. She thought she was doing all the right things. And, she was trying to live her best lifestyle, trying to do her best in being healthy and whatnot. But she was like, something's not working. So we implemented these foundations. And literally at the halfway point, she forgot she had fatigue. She forgot that she was waking up feeling horrible, had low energy throughout the day. Like, it just completely went away with just a few little, I mean, they're not little, they're big steps, but implementing the foundations is really important.
Yeah, I just love to remind people too. You said yourself, eat like your great grandmother did. It's simplifying your diet. And for me, I've never eaten more delicious meals in my life since I've switched things around. I mean, we're talking have the meat and the cheese and the carbs and the produce, of course. That sounds like a delicious meal to me. We're not telling you to cut out calories. We're not telling you to eat like just lentils. And I just always mention lentils because that when I was vegetarian, like that's all I ate. And quinoa and kale. Like, no, we're telling you to eat delicious and simple meals. So I'm just thinking about people in my life that would hear what you just said about your 4-month program and think, oh, this sounds like it's going to be a lot of work and it's really detailed and it sounds overwhelming. And it might be at first, but I feel like it just becomes I don't know, almost common sense. Like once you learn what is improving your health, and it's delicious, it's simple.
Is one of my clients. She came to me also with, not at the time, but she had previously had a lot of eating disorders,
Mm.
and really, really nervous about the eating portion of it, learning about nutrition. And she thought it was going to be really restrictive because that's what, when you go on Instagram, that's what they're telling you is to cut out calories, count calories, reduce the foods that you're eating, and just make it really complicated. But that's why I like to just say at the end of the day, eat like your great grandmother did. Food used
Mhm.
to be celebrated and honored, and it used to be nourishing and viewed as something that wasn't inconvenient. Today it's just viewed as like, you just gotta count calories and eat crappy, tasteless food. But she said to me, she was like, I have never felt so much freedom in my diet, my food. And I was really nervous about this, but she was like, it has opened so many doors, which is something you don't realize. Like when you think of health, you think it's closing a lot of doors, but it's not. When you just eat simple ingredients, it tastes really good. You can make good food. You don't have to be missing out on anything. And like, you can still go eat your cookies, just know what's going into them. Get really good flour, get organic sugar. You don't have to be cutting out, you don't have to be making the sweet potato brownies. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, the black bean brownies. Those are kind of good, but they don't make me feel good.
Yeah.
Um, okay, amazing. So I would love to start on cycle syncing, start chatting about that. I know that it's gonna have to be slightly an intro because we don't have 4 months to heal every listener right now. But just what's an intro and just for fun, because I'm dying to know what are some of the biggest differences of the 4 phases of your cycle? I'm so curious.
Yeah, so this is something that I wish that every single woman knew about. And honestly, I wish it was something that we were just taught in sex ed, in middle school, high school. It's crazy that it takes a podcast or a random book to learn about these things. But so, diving into it, we have 4 phases. First, the follicular, then ovulatory, then the luteal, and then the menstrual. So I know that can be a lot to memorize, so I'll explain it in a way that's really easy to understand. So I'll start with our menstrual phase. And this is when we are bleeding. So when we are bleeding, this is when we're on our period. But I like to think of each phase as seasons. So think of your menstrual phase as your winter season. You are in hibernation. You are not doing anything. Your energy is super low. Think about winter in nature. There's no leaves, the grass isn't growing, fruit's not being produced, nothing's going on. It's just staying still, you're hibernating. So this is your menstrual phase. This is when you're bleeding. After that, you go into your follicular phase. And think of this like spring. You're coming out of winter. You're slowly gaining your energy. The main thing during your follicular phase is estrogen is rising, and that's what's going to increase your energy. So once you're off of your period, don't think that you're just going to come running out of the gates, start doing your HIIT workout, start doing everything. This is springtime. You're starting to warm up to summer, which is your ovulatory phase. So your ovulatory phase is when you're ovulating. This is a shorter window. So your ovulation is only like a 24-hour thing. But our ovulation phase we consider it to be like 48 hours. It's a smaller window, but this is your summer. So this is when your hormones are literally peaking. Estrogen is their highest. It stimulates FSH and LH, which stimulates ovulation. And that is when you feel your best. You have the most amount of energy. What's really cool during this phase is not only do you feel your best, but you also look your best. So your body is signaling that, hey, it's time to reproduce. I'm ovulating. So your cheekbones get a little bit more defined, your jawline becomes a little bit sharper. Like you literally look your best, which is so cool. This is when you want to do like the HIIT workouts. So then after you ovulate, you go into your luteal phase. And your luteal phase is the longest phase. It's about 2 weeks long-ish. But like I mentioned at the beginning of this, if you're not ovulating, you're not going into your luteal phase. And the biggest thing that you're experiencing in your luteal phase is a hormone called progesterone. And progesterone gets a really bad rap because a lot of times people don't have enough of it. So this is when you're experiencing the PMS, the anxiety, all these symptoms during your luteal phase if you don't have enough of it. And the reason why a lot of women don't have enough of it is because if you don't have a really strong ovulation, the thing called a follicle releases the egg. The follicle is what then produces progesterone. So if you don't have a really robust ovulation, you're not going to produce enough progesterone, and it's also known as the calming hormone. So if you don't have enough of it, it's not going to give you that calming effect. The symptoms of not enough progesterone also is not really good sleep, or if you have a lot of like the brown discharge before your period, that's also a sign of low progesterone. But we also need enough progesterone to be able to carry through a pregnancy. So ovulation is really, really important, and prioritizing that and making sure that you have a robust ovulation, because then that helps with your progesterone. Anyways, so that is like the 4 phases, and the luteal phase, I didn't say it, but it's your fall. So this is when you're starting to wind back down, prepare for hibernation, going into your bleed, going into your menstrual cycle. And so with each of these things, think of your life as if you're in each of those seasons. So one thing we can talk about is food, and like a really basic way. You can really get into the nitty-gritty of like cycle syncing food, but one thing I like to start with is the style of cooking. And I promise it's not that complicated, but when you're in your menstrual phase, which is your winter, think really warming, like soups, stews, foods that are really comforting. In your follicular, your spring, think more of like sauteed vegetables with like a side of meat. During your ovulatory, this is summertime, so think more of like lighter meals, salads, smoothies. Make sure you have enough protein though with them. Don't just eat fruit and vegetables. Make sure you have protein with each of them. And then going into your luteal, which is your fall, think about like casseroles and stuff like that. So, I mean, you can like, there's so much to cycle syncing, but I think the easiest way to think about it is the 4 seasons and living your life as if you're in each of those seasons.
Amazing. And can you touch a little bit more on working out? Because You mentioned the hit workout season is 48 hours. I personally stick to my same workout regimen for 28 days. I don't switch it up. I'm definitely willing to because there's definitely days that I absolutely dread going. And since I've been pregnant, I have not been tracking my cycle. Before I did natural birth control, so I did. So I would have been able to see, oh, it's because I'm in this phase. Would you just suggest smaller workouts in the other phases, or what would you suggest for that?
Yeah, so with working out and cycle syncing, the biggest thing with it is listen to your body. So if
Mhm.
you're absolutely dreading a workout, listen to your body. It's okay. I think we're just really praised as a society to be productive and do things. But let's not forget, like I said, during wintertime in nature, it's not being productive. Like we don't have to be productive all the time. So
Mm.
with that, with cycle syncing and our energy, um, what we want to do is when we're specifically in our menstrual phase, is to just chill. Just don't push super hard. Our hormones are literally the lowest, which means our energy is the lowest. And this is the time where we should just be taking a step back and reflecting, looking at, hey, how did the rest of our month go or our previous month go? Um, and then as we go into our follicular phase, start to increase whatever workout that you enjoy doing. You can really get into the nitty gritty of like what kinds of workouts, but I would say just start to incorporate a little bit more workouts in your follicular phase. And then as you get into your ovulatory, this is the best time to lift the hardest, run your fastest times, like really push yourself. You can go hard, and once you do this, like start noticing how much better you feel when you push yourself really hard in your ovulatory versus your menstrual. Because then as you go into your luteal, you start to wind down, continue to work out if it feels good for you. But then as you go into your menstrual phase, odds are you're probably not going to be excited to work out. And listen to that. It's okay. Like, I think we're just not saying that enough. Like, hey, just take the bubble bath. It's gonna be fine. No worries. And then you're gonna feel really good again once you start, you know, after your period and start incorporating working out again.
I love that. Okay, that's manageable. And I will admit, and I'm assuming this is most of Western culture, I don't know, maybe the whole world. I will admit that I do more hit workouts. I do more crazy 30-minute, maybe hour workouts than long walks and staying active in general and maybe hiking or hobbies because I feel too busy all the time. So if I can just jam pack the most hardcore weightlifting and all that into 30 minutes, then that's how I'll fit working out into my schedule. And I don't know if everyone relates with that, but I feel like that's kind of where our culture is going is just do as much in a day as possible. And I'm definitely having the ancestral awakening thinking lately, oh, back in the day, they weren't just like going to the gym for 30 minutes and getting it all done. No, their whole lives were active. And yeah, I'm trying to incorporate more hobbies into my life and more just doing things that are active. And if I, yes, have to edit on my computer all the time and things, maybe doing it while standing, stuff like that, just so that it's not this life of sitting all day, but a 30-minute hit workout. And that resonates for sure. So just a lifestyle switch. Um, I am curious if you've ever helped any clients with natural birth control. I know this is a very big subject as well, but that was just my introduction into tracking my cycle at all. And I honestly put it off until I was engaged because I knew that I didn't want to get pregnant right away when I got married. And um, yeah, so I knew a little bit about my cycle and I wore an Aura ring because taking my temperature in the morning right when I woke up was annoying to me. So I had an Aura ring tell me what phase of my cycle I was in. Do you have like any comments on that?
Yeah, so using your cycle as a means of birth control is also one of those things that a lot of people are very, very intimidated by, and a reason why a lot of people don't want to come off of birth control. but when you use it correctly, it can be very, very effective. I mean, just as effective as birth control. So, you know, a lot of people, again, talking about fertility, we think about it as getting pregnant, but when we know our fertile signs, we can also use it as a way to not get pregnant. So I'm not certified in teaching specifically fertility awareness method, but I can speak on it and just like give a little introduction on it. And so fertility awareness method is learning the 5-day window in which you can get pregnant. Mm-hmm. So the egg gets released and it only survives for about 48 hours. But sperm can live for 5 days. So the 5 days prior to ovulating is your fertile window, including, I mean, like 5 to 7 days roughly. And so there's a few signs. I won't go into like everything and all of it. There's so much to it.
Yeah.
But it's like the 3 biggest things that you can start doing is 1, tracking your temperature. I love Temp Drop. It's an armband that you just wear at night and then it syncs up to your phone. It's Bluetooth. It doesn't emit Bluetooth radiation throughout the night, but only when you're downloading. So it's only like a minute every few days when you're downloading, it emits like EMFs. So it's pretty low on that spectrum. But you don't have to take your temperature in the morning, and it charts your temperatures, which is really nice. And the second one is cervical mucus. It's a really great thing to talk about. Learning, you know, your cervical mucus increases the few days before you ovulate. That's a really good sign. And then your cervix position. So that also changes when you're ovulating. And there's just not enough time to like really dive into it, but this is something that I do talk about when we work one-on-one together. But understanding, the biggest thing is it's really great to have an app to log everything in, but it's really important to understand your signs and understanding when you're ovulating and not just like relying on an app to tell you when you're ovulating. You need to know when you're ovulating. So that's something that's like just really important. Again, it goes back into like following your intuition and just like trusting your body and understanding how to read it, what it's telling you, and just like learning what it's communicating with you.
Yeah, awesome. Of course, to any listeners, you need way more information than that to avoid getting pregnant. So yeah, that's just a little intro, but many women don't know that this is an option, and it's what I was doing successfully and what many people in my life do. I just happen to have that kind of community where a lot of the women in my life don't have birth control and they're successful with this. But yeah, it is definitely it's you got to stay on it if you're going to fully rely on that. But I was definitely guilty of just relying on my app, and I'm really glad you brought that up. I was wondering, is there a low EMF option for um, keeping up with your temperature? Because I was bummed about that with the Oura Ring, but I just did it anyways. Totally relied on the app and knew one day I'll learn more about my cervical mucus and learn more about why I'm feeling a certain way at this time of month. And yeah, so thank you for kind of summarizing that. And I definitely want to dive deeper into this information. I should not have waited to be pregnant to do this, but it's hard. Life is busy, and I think I'm pretty sure I also could just be pure luck, but I'm pretty sure my very strict habits and strong intentions of living a low tox lifestyle got me to not have a lot of these crappy symptoms, heavy periods and cramps, because I didn't experience those things. I was never motivated to really dive deep into this, but I definitely have room for improvement for anyone that is experiencing, again, even acne and bloating. These are signs. And so research now before you get pregnant or before you're even trying to not get pregnant or whatever. Let's be in tune with our bodies and just see the multitude of benefits that come along with that. One last question is about the Dutch test. What exactly does that entail? Doing it at home, and then do you buy that online?
Yes, so that is something that it gets ordered to your house. So I will order it for you when we work together. You can also order it yourself, but it's actually a lot more expensive if you do that. So I can order it for you. It literally just gets mailed to your house. There's a very specific day that you take it, and it's in your luteal phase. And the reason being is it actually can tell you if you've ovulated or not, which I think is something that every woman should know if you're ovulating or not. So there's so much good information with it. But it gets just sent to your door. You take the test. It's a urine test combined with a saliva test, and the saliva actually measures your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So there's a lot of good information. Your hormones aren't just like your sex hormones, it's also your cortisol. So we can see how your adrenals are doing, if they've been really fatigued or not. And the biggest thing with the hormone test is that we can see exactly how your hormones are being metabolized. And I'll try to make it a quick story, but one of my clients, she's like, hey, I would love to have you look at my Dutch test, just take a second look at it, because she was working with a naturopath and she was experiencing like extreme anxiety. She was like, something just seems off with my hormones. I don't know what. But her naturopath basically just said like, oh, you're good. Here's some like random supplements. And they didn't really deep dive into the Dutch test. They didn't really know how to interpret it. And so when I looked at it, I immediately saw some like huge red flags on what was going on and things that you wouldn't expect. For one, the way her progesterone was being metabolized was contributing to her anxiety. Methylation, which is like phase 2 of your liver detoxification process, her methylation was really, really high, which contributes to anxiety. And so basically with that, there's so many different things that your hormones can tell you. It's not just like, oh, can I get pregnant or not? It's like these things that, oh, we're told that anxiety is just all in your head, but hormones can contribute to it. There's so many different symptoms that you wouldn't expect that hormones contribute to, but with the Dutch test, it can give such a comprehensive look. And then from there, we know exactly what to help with. And even the supplements that her naturopath had recommended, in my opinion, were going to make the symptoms worse. So it's important to know like what specific supplements are best for your specific scenario. That's why I don't recommend just taking like, oh, here's a one size fits all, because it can do more harm than good. So I definitely recommend everyone to take a Dutch test. And you can take it up to every 6 months, even every 3 months, but they're not the cheapest things in the world. If you're thinking about getting pregnant, do it 6 months before.
Sweet, thank you. That answers that. I'd never heard of it before. So, and I also just want to mention add that to the list is anxiety, the list of symptoms that could be showing hormone imbalance and that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There is solutions and something that's just becoming way too common and normalized these days. So, amazing. I feel like, of course, there's so much more to learn, but that was an amazing intro. And I learned so much, and I can't wait to learn more about cycle syncing. I've seen just even fun Pinterest graphs of fun recipes for each seat. Like, that's so fun. I mean, I think it's fun, maybe a little overwhelming, but I do want to get into it after I have baby. So we'll for sure, we'll add contact info for Anne in the show notes and just where to find her, how to reach out and learn more. Any more closing notes?
Um, Really the last thing is, I know you just mentioned like it seems overwhelming, but I promise it really does become second nature and it becomes very intuitive. And after you do it for a few months, I mean, it just honestly makes a lot of sense. It's something that I think is kind of similar to starting to become sustainable, where it's very overwhelming, but after a while, it just becomes second nature to go to a thrift store, to just carry around a reusable bottle, things that seemed really daunting at first, but over time, it really just becomes second nature and very intuitive to do. So I promise it sounds like a lot right now, but it's not.
Thanks for saying that. I know I keep saying, oh, it's overwhelming, but I'll start. And it's just silly because people would probably look at my, yeah, sustainability lifestyle or nutrition and think that's overwhelming. And I'm like, what? I'm just doing my thing. I'm living my best life. And I love every decision I make, and it just makes sense. Like, I don't think my life is overwhelming at all, and people would probably look at my intentions and think, oh, that's so much to learn. And so, of course, I'm seeing what you're saying, and I have not fully dove in yet, so it seems overwhelming, but it's just because it's new. So you're right, and I'm excited to switch that point of view. So sweet. Thank you so much. This was epic, and I can't wait to keep learning with you. Thanks for joining, and until next time, guys, feel free to ask questions, comment. I'm sure Anne will chime in on some questions too. I'll poke her if you have some questions directed at her in the comments. So thanks, guys. Until next time.
Thank you.